Hello and welcome to this channel. My name is Emmanuel Odrojuma and I'll be your trainer for this entire series. Subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications to be alerted when a new video is posted. If you have any question, just post it at the comment section and I'll surely attend to them. If you like this video at the end, just hit the like button. Okay, so before I go into the actual code, I would like to demonstrate what HTML does for us in this journey of building websites. Let me share a story of mine. When I decided to go into web development, I thought by learning HTML, I'll be able to design beautiful websites like this particular one. So I thought I could design this particular website or web page just with the help of HTML. But when I started, I realized that HTML only does not do this. So it's a combination of different technologies that provides us this beautiful web page. What HTML really does for us is to bring the content onto the page. For example, this text over here, this button over here, this icon over here, this icon, this button, this text, and these icons and this picture. So what HTML does for us is just to bring the content onto the page. We use a different technology to make it beautiful, to style it. And if we need a dynamic website, another technology also helps us to do that. So for this particular website, when I click on this one, you see that interaction. It is some other technology that does that for us. The beauty of this, the positioning, the styles, the colors is by the help of CSS. So HTML only brings the content, CSS changes or makes it beautiful, and JavaScript gives us that interaction that we need. So what I'm going to do is I'll take away the CSS and JavaScript part of this particular web page, and we see what HTML did for us to be able to create this particular web page. So I'll take CSS out. So you see, this is what HTML does for us to bring the content we had on the page onto the page. So this is what HTML really does for us, this bringing the content onto the page, but the actual styling, making it beautiful. You see the image over here, so it is just HTML doing its job, but the actual styling is done with CSS and the interactions are done with JavaScript. Let me bring up CSS again. So we get that beautiful interface after I have CSS. Let me take away JavaScript. And when I click on this, you see the interactions are gone. So that interaction, that beautiful interaction that we had when I clicked this particular button is gone. So if I bring it back, and I click on it, you see that particular interaction is now active. So HTML brings the content, CSS makes it beautiful, and JavaScript gives us that interactiveness on the page. Okay, so now I'll be taking you through how to get the various softwares throughout your coding journey. So these are the softwares you need when building any website, the basic softwares. So first of all, you need a web browser. At least you should have one web browser installed. Microsoft Edge is okay, Google Chrome is okay, Mozilla Firefox is also okay. So any of them, you are good to go. You'd also need a text editor. But the one I'll be using in this entire series is called Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code. But there are other text editors. If you decide to choose any, that is entirely based on you. But the one I'll be using is Visual Studio Code. So if you want to code along with me as we go, then I suggest you also download Visual Studio Code so you follow along with me. So I'll teach you how to get the software. Open any web browser and then you can search for VS Code. So VS Code. There's a website for getting VS Code. So on this page, if you are working with a Mac, you can go for this. You are working with a Linux distribution, you can go with this. But since I'm on Windows, I'll go for this particular one. So if you are on Windows, you can also click on this particular button. And the download has started. So you wait for it to finish. Okay, so it is done. We can now open it and install it. Okay, so if you are confused with the location that particular file is, you can just click on this particular icon and it will take you straight to the folder where the downloaded file is. So this is my downloaded file. I'll double click to install it, go through the steps of installing it. But since I've already installed it, I'll not go through the process again. But this is how to get the file, and all that you have to do is to install this particular file. Okay, so when you are done and you open it, there's the interface of Visual Studio Code. Because you have not worked on it before, you get this part as empty. You see this over here for the first time, but because I've already worked with VS Code, I see the recent works that I've made with the software. So this is Visual Studio Code, and we need two more extensions. They are basic extensions. There are so many extensions, but basically we need certain two extensions to be able to help us in our development journey. So there's the tab for extensions. I'll click on it, and the extensions I need, there are two. One is live server. So what this does for us is to be able to see how our website is looking at a point in time. So as we write our code and we want to see how it is looking, we can just run it using a live server to get a preview of what we have built. So that is live server. So when you search for it, this particular first one, you see install over here, you just click on it. Because I've already installed live server, that's why I don't see that one. So if it is new and you haven't installed, you see install like this, then you click on it. Another extension you need is called Prettier. So Prettier is also used to format your code. So because I've installed Prettier, you see this install over here, and just hit on install and you get Prettier. So you need these basic extensions to be able to work with your VS Code. They are not mandatory, they are optional, but it will help you along your coding journey. Okay, so we have the extensions now. We can move on to the order of the day. Okay, so what we'll be talking about right now is file and folder management. As a web designer, you need to know how to manage and organize your files in folders. So the yellow ones, the yellow icons that you see here are folders. What they do for us is to be able to group certain files that are related to keep us organized. So as a web designer, you'll be building many projects, so you have to be organizing your files in their various folders, so that anytime you want to make changes, you just go to that particular project to make changes. So at any location, you can create a folder for your projects. So let's say you want to keep all your projects on your desktop. You can right click any empty part of the desktop, select new, and then select folder. So what name are you going to give to it? Maybe my projects. So in this particular folder called my projects, this is where I'll be keeping all the projects that I'll be working on. So I can now open this particular folder. In this particular folder, let's say I have a project that I want to work on. Let's say a company has brought me a project to work on. Let's say the company is called Vodafone. I can decide to create another folder for Vodafone. So let's say if another company brings me a project too, I can also create another folder for that particular company. Let's say Telecel. So all these folders will host or keep the files that are related to that particular company. So if I'm working on the Telecel project, I also open the project, and then within the project I can keep the files. Now if someone brings his work, or if a company brings his work, or you are making a website yourself, you would basically have images that would appear on the website. So what most designers like to do is to also create a separate folder inside the project and call it, let's say, images. Some also use img. It depends on you. So another folder called images, and keep all the pictures, all the images inside that particular folder to stay organized. So within my projects folder, I have the I have the various projects that I'm going to work on. Within the Telecel project, I also have all my pictures inside that particular folder to stay organized. So what I'll do next is to copy some images into this particular folder. So let me pick this image. Okay. So within this particular folder, we have this image. So in my main project, I have Telecel and Vodafone. In the Telecel project, I have a folder called images, and within images, I have this particular file. Now, when I go to the properties of this particular file, you notice that this is the name of the file, and there's something over here, JPG, and then there's something in bracket, .jpg. This is called the file extension, and what it does is that it tells the computer the type of file that this particular file is. Is it an audio file? Is it an image file? Is it a video file? Is it a document? So this file extension tells the computer that anytime someone opens this particular file is an image file, so it will choose the appropriate software to open that particular file. So since it is an image software, it is opening with the Photos application on the computer. So if I go to another file, say so if I come to this particular folder, if I right click on this one, go to properties, and check it out. The type of file is mp3 file, and in brackets is what, .mp3. So it means that this particular file is an audio file. In the computer will choose a program that can open audio files, and it says open with media player. So anytime you open a file with this particular file extension, it will choose this application to launch that particular file, and you can use this one to change the default application that is used to open this particular file. So the file extensions are very important, and we will need these file extensions when we are also developing our website, because our websites are also files that we are going to relate together to form that particular website. So I opened a particular website, a login page, as a demonstration, and this is the files, and these are the files that make and these are the files that made up that particular website. You see, so there's this file. Let me check the properties. So you see that the type of file is Microsoft Edge HTML document. So in brackets you see .html. So the name of the file is index, but the file extension is .html. So anytime this file is opened, it will choose Microsoft Edge as the application for opening it. Why? Because .html files are treated as web pages. So it will use a web browser to try and then open that particular file if it sees this file extension. So the file extensions will tell the computer the type of file it is and what software to launch that particular file. So anytime you are building with HTML, it means you are going to add this particular extension to the files that we'll be creating. Okay. Anytime you are building with CSS, let's check this particular file. Anytime you are building CSS with CSS, you add extension .css to tell the computer that this particular file is a CSS file. Same applies to JavaScript. So this type of file is a JavaScript file, and the file extension is .js. So anytime you want to work with JavaScript, you are going to add .js as a file extension to the name of that particular file. So basically, a website is a group of files that has been linked together to function as one. And for organization purposes, you have to organize yourself in folders so that anytime you can come to that particular folder and make changes accordingly. So I have a folder that is going to keep all my projects. Within the project, I have the various folders for each project. I can open that particular folder, and within the folder I can decide to group all the images or the pictures inside one folder called images or img. So when I open this, you see for now I have only one picture within it. So this is basically how to organize yourself as a web designer. You can choose to organize yourself anyhow, but this is basically what I do to my projects before I start coding itself. Okay, so after getting your folder structure, the next thing is to use the Visual Studio Code application to open that particular folder. So we need to open that particular folder inside Visual Studio Code. So if it is the telecell project that you are going to work on, you open Visual Studio Code and open the telecell folder inside the Visual Studio Code, so that everything that you do within Visual Studio Code will be stored inside that particular folder. So how do we do it? You can choose to click on open folder here. You can also choose to come to file and select open folder. Any of them works. And if you have already worked on a particular project, it will show up here so that you don't go through the stress of clicking here and searching for that particular folder. If you have worked on one and closed it, it will show up here. Okay, so since this is a new one that we are going to work with, I'll go and then open it. So I'll click on file, come to open folder, and I think I stored the folder on my desktop. So I'll come here. So wherever you decided to store your particular project folder, you make sure you go to that location, you browse to that location and select that particular folder. So mine was on the desktop. I think I named it my projects. So this particular one, I double click, and then I'm going to work on the telecell folder. So what I'll do is I'll click it once and select folder. So you see that the name of the folder is shown here, and then the content of that particular folder is shown here. So you see that we had a folder called images inside the telecell folder. If I click on this one, you see that that particular picture, the file that we moved into the images folder is also here. So it means that we have opened that particular folder inside the Visual Studio Code. So right now, whatever file, whatever folder that we create over here will be stored inside that particular folder that we created. So this is the basic. There's one way of setting it up. You can watch other videos and get other ways of setting it up, but for me, this is how I set mine up anytime I'm starting a new project. Okay, so anytime that you visit a website, you see that there's a first page that comes before you can click at any location and move to a different page. So that first page is mostly called the home page of that particular website. So every website has a home page, and what designers mostly like to do is to name that particular file. I've already told you that websites are files, so every page is a file. So we are going to design every page and link them together. So that particular first page, that particular first file that opens when you go to any website is called the home page. And what designers like to do is to name it with a special name called index. It is not by force, but it is what most designers like to do. So I'm going to create that particular file and call it index as well. So what I'll do is you can decide to use this particular one. Click new file and create it. You can come here and select new file. You can also use this icon over here, this button over here, to create a new file. But mind you, you have to first select the folder. We need the file to go to the parent folder. So if you are not careful, the file will be inserted into the images folder. So what I mostly do is to click on this and click back again before I come to the new file. So I click on the new file, and then it gives me a prompt to type the name of the file. So what do? I type index because I want to design the home page of the website. And we talked about file extensions. For the computer to be able to treat this as a web page, what do we have to add? We have to add .html. So by adding .html to the name of the file, the computer will see that particular file as an HTML file. So when we open that particular file, the computer is going to open the file using a web browser because of that particular extension. So I hit enter, and now the file is created. So this is how to get the HTML file created. One way of getting the HTML file created. And as I see, if you watch other videos, you can go through a different process of creating the file, but this is what I like mostly. I like using this button instead of the open file we found here. So this part is showing us that we can edit the content of this particular file. So for now, the file is empty. There is nothing inside the file. Then the cursor is blinking at the first line of this particular file. The line numbers are important mostly when you make errors. Sometimes when you make errors, it will tell you, it will suggest to you where the error is located, and you can use that as a guide to be able to debug your code. So the line numbers are also important in a way. So for now, our file is empty. So what I'll do is we are now going to begin our coding journey. So we are going to build the web page for the home page. Okay, so what we'll be doing now is to bring up the boilerplate for the HTML file. When I say boilerplate, I mean the basic structure of the HTML file. So we are going to bring up the basic structure so that we work from there. And VS Code helps us to be able to bring up the boilerplate by using a shortcut. Without that shortcut, you would have typed everything, but that shortcut helps us a lot. What you do is to type exclamation sign, wait for this to pop up, and then just press enter or tab. So this is the boilerplate for a basic HTML document. So you see the top part as doc type. Now this particular doc type tells the computer, or tells us that we are going to be coding in HTML5. So you are going to be using HTML5 for our code, not HTML4. So this is the HTML5. This is going to be used for HTML5. There is an attribute. Without this, it will still work, because the attributes are just giving more information as to the tag that we have. So this is the basic structure of every HTML document, and as I said, VS Code can help you. VS Code can help you get this by using just a shortcut. Just let me do it again. What you do is to type exclamation sign, wait for this to appear. You can select the first one or press enter or press tab, and you get it. Okay, so this is the basic structure of every HTML page. So if I want to look at how this particular file is looking at the moment, I can just come to the file, right click, and you see open with live server here. So we are going to use the live server extension that we downloaded. It will help us to view how the website is looking at the moment. So I can click on this one and wait for it to pop up. So let me close this one. So this is basically how our website is looking at the moment. There is nothing over here because there is nothing in the body. So let me put it side by side. Okay, so when you look at the body, you see that within the body there is nothing within the body. That is why we don't have anything over here. Now this tag, this title tag, you see that the content of the title tag is what? Document. So that is what we see over here. So that is what the title tag did for us in this code. So the meta tags over here, does not really affect the content of the web page, but what it does, some of them help the search engine optimizers, SEOs, to function properly. This meta tag also makes sure that our website is also looking good on every device that we have. So the width is set to the width of that particular device. So this meta tag, so the meta tags doesn't really don't really affect the content of the page, but rather it gives more functionality. Okay, so the title tag is what is happening here. If I change this one to, let's say, ALX eHub and save it, you see that it changes to ALX eHub. So that is what the title tag is doing. It changes the name given to the tab. Okay, so this is the boilerplate of the HTML document. Okay, so now we talk about tags in HTML. So let me clear this and explain a concept. Now, every element on a web page is a tag. Every element on a web page is a tag. So what we'll be doing is to be learning the tags for bringing each element onto the web page using HTML. So what we'll be doing right now is to learn how to get the elements onto the web page using those tags. So what I'll be explaining about the tags is that there are certain tags that has a separate opening and a separate closing. For example, the P tag has a separate opening and a separate closing. And when you are bringing up the tag, when you are typing the tag, you begin with a less than, and then you type P, and then a greater than. So it automatically added the rest of the tag. So if I press spacebar to separate them, I just want to show you something. This is the opening tag, and this one is the closing tag. So within the middle, that is where the actual content of the tag appears. So the tags do not appear on the web page inside the browser. What appears on the web page is the content of the tag. So it is the tag that will tell it what the content actually is. So let's be mindful of that. It is the content that actually appears on the web page, not the tags. But the difference between the opening tag and the closing tag is this / before the name of the tag. So you have a less than, the name of the tag, and a greater than, and then the content falls in the middle, a less than, / the name of the tag, and a greater than. That is the closing tag. Okay, so the self-closing tags, the ones that do not have a separate opening and closing, mostly comes like this: less than. An example is the brick tag. So I type BR and then I type greater than. So this tag doesn't have a separate opening and a separate closing. So this particular tag in itself will perform the task it's supposed to perform. But the P tag has a separate opening and then a separate closing, and then the content of the tag comes within the middle. So this one doesn't really have a content to be placed in any middle because there is no separate closing. It is self-closing. When you see / here for the self-closing tags, it also works. But in HTML5, you have the ability not to bring the / and it will also work perfectly. So there's a self-closing tag. This one has a separate opening and then the separate closing. So these are the tags that we'll be working with. Every HTML page, the elements are brought up using tags. So when I bring up the boilerplate again, you see that the HTML tag, let me take away the attribute. So the HTML tag over here is an opening tag. When you come down here, you see that there's a closing tag over here. So it means that everything over here is within the HTML tag. So everything over here is within the HTML tag. Everything over here is within the HTML tag. So when I move on to the head tag, you see that there's a opening head here, and then this is the closing head tag. So it means that everything over here is also within the head tag. Is also within the head tag. And to show that this is within the head tag, most of the times we also indent it. So you indent this one, you indent this one, and then you indent this one to show that it is also in this particular tag. Okay, so for the body tag, you see this is the opening body tag and this one is the closing body tag. But for the body tag, there is no content. That is why when we viewed it in the browser, there was nothing showing on the web page because there's nothing in the body tag. So when you come to the title tag, you see that there's an opening tag and then a closing tag, and within it is the content of that particular tag. So it is this content that really appeared on the web page. So let me view it again. So you see that it is really only the document that appeared here, and then the title tags didn't appear. So it is only the content that appears on the page, not the tags. The tags only describes what that particular content is. So now we'll be taking the tags one after the other to learn how they are used. So the first tag that we'll be talking about is the heading tag. So if you need an element that looks like a heading that we use for a heading, then this particular tag or these particular tags are your go-to tags. So the first tag is the H1 tag. So you can just press H1, and then when you get this, you press enter. So when you do this, it gives you the opening tag. So let me space it up. It gives you the opening tag, and it gives you the closing tag, and it places the cursor in the middle of the tag. So whatever that you type will be the content of that particular tag. So it means I have this opening heading tag, I have this closing heading tag, and then this is the content of this particular tag. So if I save this, it means that this particular content will appear on the page as a heading tag. So only this particular content will appear on the page as a heading tag. So let's see. So you see that particular content appears on the web page. So let me change it to, let's say, sign in. So sign in and save it, and I go there. You see sign in as a heading inside my web page. Let me do it this way. Okay. So there's a heading tag. So the heading tags, so we have 6 different heading tags. So from H1, another heading tag is H2. So I type H2, I press enter, and it gives me the separate opening and the separate closing. So I use sign in again, save it, and then it appears. So the difference between the H1 tag and then the H2 tag has to do with the size. So the H2 tag is smaller than the H1 tag. So as per the size that you need, then you choose the tag that you want. But mind you, you can use CSS to change how it looks. Even though this is the basic one it gives you, you can use CSS to change how it looks. But we are not doing CSS now. We are basically coding in HTML. So this is what by default it gives us. So we have from H1 up to H6. So H3 also look like this. So H3 also look like this. So you can try it up to H6 and look at how it looks. Okay, so the next tag we are going to talk about is the paragraph tag. So the paragraph tag also brings is used to bring text in the form of paragraphs onto our page, longer texts that are not let's see, that wouldn't be used as a heading. Most often we use the paragraph tag. So all that you do is to type P and it suggests to you, and then you can hit enter or tab. So I hit enter and it gives me an opening and a closing, so I can type whatever that I want. This is a sign-in page. So I save it and it brings the text onto the page. So there's the paragraph tag. There's the paragraph tag and how to use it. So the next tag that I will be talking about is the anchor tag. So if you want an element that when clicked, it will take you to, let's say, a different web page, then the anchor tag is your go-to. For example, if someone clicks on something, it should open Facebook. If someone clicks on something, it should go to a different location. Then you use the anchor tag. So how do we use the anchor tag? You can type A and it gives you this, and then you press enter. So this is the anchor tag. Now the cursor is blinking inside the href, the quotations within the href. Now the href is where you want the link to send you to. So the destination. If you want to be taken to, let's say, Facebook when that particular thing is clicked, then you type the website of or the web address of Facebook inside there. So let's say I want to be taken to https://www.youtube.com. So I want to be taken to youtube.com when a particular thing is clicked. Now the question now is, so let me save it. If I save it, you see that there's nothing happening on the page. There's nothing happening on the page because I have not told it what to appear on the page. So you see that at the end of the opening and then the beginning of the closing, there is no content over here. So I can now add the content and say, let's say, click me. Or let me make it link. So when I save it, you see that the word link appears. Let me bring it a bit here. So you see that the word link appears, and when I click on this particular one, it's trying to take me to YouTube. So that is how to make an anchor tag. Anchor tags are link tags. When clicked, it will take you to a different page, a different location when clicked. You see that when I clicked on link, it opened the web page inside the tab that I was working in. It didn't open a new tab. So there is an attribute that is used for that. If you want the link to open a new tab when it is clicked, then what you do is to add an attribute here. So before the greater than symbol for the opening tag, you can bring this attribute. The attribute is called target. So what I did was, as I was typing the target, it suggested to me and I pressed tab. So these are the options for the target. Now by default it's set to self, meaning it will open within that particular tab. But if you want it to open a different tab, then you use this particular one, _ blank. So when I save it and click on this particular link, you see that it opens the location in a different tab. So that is what the target attribute does for us. If you want to open the particular link, the particular location in a different tab, then you use the underscore blank. By default, it is on underscore self, which says that, or which tells the browser to open that particular location inside the same tab. So I leave the other two for you to research on as your test. So for web development, as a tech genius, you have to be exploring things on your own. So as you saw it, we had 4. So we have the underscore blank, underscore self. I've talked about the underscore self and underscore blank. So explore these two and see what it also does for you. So underscore blank will take you to a different tab, to use a different tab in opening the link. Underscore self will use the same tab in opening the link. So that is the anchor tag for you. Okay, so the next tag that we'll be talking about is the image tag. So the image tag is, as the name implies, is going to bring the images that we want onto our web page. So if you need any image on your web page, then use the image tag. So I'm going to demonstrate it. So you can type img. So that is for the image tag. So after getting it, you can press enter or tab to bring the tag onto your code. Now let's look at this particular tag. You see that this particular tag is a self-closing tag. You don't have a separate opening and a separate closing. So for the image tag, it is a self-closing tag. So the image tag is a self-closing tag, and it has 2 attributes. All these attributes are very important. I'll talk about each of them and add another 2. So the first attribute we are going to talk about is the src, or the source attribute. Now see that even if I save this particular code, nothing happens on our web page. Is because we have not taught our code where to pick that particular file, the particular image that it should load onto our web page. So the src, or the source attribute, will be the attribute that would define the location of that particular image. So we have to teach it the location of this image. So let's look at our folder structure. Our folder structure, we have images folder, and then the picture is within the images folder. So we go to our source, type images, then it brings a suggestion. We can press tab, and then it brings another suggestion of the content of that particular images folder. So we can, if there were more than one file over there, they will all show here, and you select which one that you want. So since it's only this one, I'll select this one, and when I save it, you see that when I scroll, okay, so you see that when I make it bigger, our image is now appearing on our web page, because we have taught it where to locate that particular image and load that particular image. Now, so let's talk about the alt attribute, or the alternative attribute. So the alt attribute, what it does is, one, it helps screen readers. So if someone is using a screen reader, that is what the alt attribute will do. It's just a description of what the image is, and then the screen reader will read that particular description. So let's say it is my niece. So that's what the alt attribute does. It does nothing onto the page. So one function is to help screen readers. Another function is, if the image doesn't render properly, this is what will show on the web page. So let me change the name of this. Let me just make a mistake and store and save it, and you see that that text appears on the web page. So if the picture doesn't render properly, the alt, that description will show inside the web browser, showing that there is an image over there which is my niece. So if I bring it back, the picture comes and we don't have that text showing. So the source attributes is actually used for getting the location of that particular file. Then the alt attributes also brings a text or a description of the picture onto the web page when the picture doesn't render properly. And also it also helps when you are using screen readers. So that is the image attribute. Sorry, that is the image tag. There's another attribute called the width and then the height. So as the name implies, the width will change its width. So I use width, which is equal to, and then the value is used inside quotation marks. So let's say 200. So I save it, and it reduces the width of the picture. Now, if I don't set the height will automatically set itself so that the picture doesn't get distorted. But I can also decide to set the height of that particular picture. So I can set the height to, let's say, 200. And then you see the height changes, but the image looks a bit ugly. So if I use something smaller, you see that the image is getting a bit distorted. But with if I set the width without bringing the height, it automatically selects the height that can correspond to the width to make it still look good. Okay, so that is the image tag. So we've talked about the source attribute, the alt attribute, the width attribute, and then the height attribute. Now the width attribute and height attribute is not mostly recommended because you can use CSS to do the same thing. It is recommended that you use CSS to start the width and then the height of the page, not the image tag itself. So we don't mostly use the width and height attributes, but rather we use CSS to start the width and then the height of the image. Okay, so the next tag that we'll be talking about is the form tag. So if you need user inputs for, let's say, a registration form, a login form, those things, if you need user input, what you use is the form tag. So what you do is to type the word form and hit enter. So when you hit enter, it gives you the form tag. Now the action attribute, where the cursor is blinking, the action attribute is which location do you want to send the values of the input the user types. So if the form contains username, password, first name, whatever, those values should be sent to what location. So let's say those values should be sent to a page called login.php. So you give the location or the destination for those values. That is what the action attribute will take. Now, when you come to the part for the content of the form, now what you do, or what we mostly do, is to press enter to bring the closing tag of the form attribute downwards, because there are so many things you are going to do within it, and not bringing this one down will not keep our code clean. So we bring it down so that whatever that we want to do, we do it in the middle here to keep our code clean. Okay, so within the form tag, we are going to have inputs within the form tag, but then those inputs need descriptions. For example, if the input is to allow the person to type his or her email address, we need to describe that input so that the person knows what to type over there. So those are done with labels. So I give it a label, a type label, press enter, and then don't worry about the for attribute for now. So what we do, what label should we use? Let's say it's email. So the person is going to provide his email. So let me save it. It brings the word email onto the page. So I press enter, and then now the input itself. So since I'm requesting for the person to type the email, I should select an input that corresponds to what? Email. So I select email, and then it gives me the input tag with the type of what? Email. With the type of email. The input tag is also a self-closing tag. So you don't see a separate opening and then a separate closing. So the input tag also gives it, is also a self-closing tag. Now the name attribute over here, is, okay, when the user types whatever that it types and it is forwarded to the login.php, what identity should be given to that particular value. So the login.php should be able to determine that value is for the email. So it gives it an identity because there are so many inputs that we are going to use within the form tag. So if we use it and those values are going, you should go with an identity. You should go with a name. So let's say this, for this email tag, I'm going to use, let's say, email. So when the value the user types is sent, it is sent with the identity as what? Email. So when the login PHP receive that particular value, to receive the value with that identity, and if it wants to use that particular value, it has to reference it with the name, email. So the ID also helps to associate this input tag with JavaScript and CSS. So since we are not using it now, let me take the ID away. So when I save it, you see I have the label as email and I have the inputs over here for the user to type something. So if I press there, you see that I can type whatever that I type. Now if we use the type as email and the user types something that is not a valid email, it will give us, and tries to submit it, it will give us an error. So that is why the input type is very important. So if you give it a type, it will only allow the user to type something that corresponds to what the type is. If that is not done, it gives an error. Okay, so let's look at different inputs. So another input that we have is a password input. So before I do that, I have to give it a label. So I have to give it a label, and then the label is for password. So I save it, the password comes. Now I give the input for that particular label. So input. Now when I scroll, I see that there is an input with a type of password. So I can click on it and it gives me the type of password. The same thing, the same name applies here. So the identity of the particular value when it is being sent. So I save it and then it appears here. Don't worry about the ID for now. Let me clean it. Okay, so I have email and then password. But if you see, if you look at website, you see that the email and password, the email is at the top, the password is down. The reason why this is showing this way is that these tags are inline tags. I'll talk about it soon. So mostly what we do is this label and this input, they are one thing, so they should be joined together. This and that should also be joined together, so they should all be in their separate groups. So what I'll do is I'll group these two, and I'll group these two separately. In HTML, there are two main tags that we use for groupings, those container tags. The first one is the div tag. So I type div and press enter. So I have the opening, I have the closing. I press enter again to bring it the closing part downwards. So I would have to move this one into the div tag. I'll select it, click and hold and drag there. So I moved it, then I can move this particular one here. So I have the first label under the input inside the div tag. I've grouped it as one. I can also group this one too. So I also type div. I press enter to bring it downwards, and then I highlight this one, click and hold and move it there, bring it here and press tab. Okay, so I've grouped the two, and now when I save it, you see that it brings them like what I was trying to. One is up, one is down. So I've grouped them. So this is what we'll be doing basically. You group the label and its input anytime. So if you want a different input, you do the div, bring it down, and then you do the label. So this label is for, let's say, date of birth. Date of birth. Put it here, press enter, and then this input, date of birth is a date. So the input type is a date. I bring this one, the name. So I make it date of birth, date of birth. I save it. And then it gives me the label of date of birth, and the type is date. So that's why it's giving me this. So I can click here, and it brings me the calendar to select the particular date. So this is the form tag. Okay. So the last input, you can explore the other inputs. The last input that I'll be talking about is the button to be clicked. Now the button is only, you don't have a label and then the button itself. So all that we are going to do is to use the input tag for the button. So it needs not to be placed inside a div tag to group, because it stands alone. So I type input, but it is still part of the forms. So I don't go outside the form. So I do inside the form, I do input, and then I can choose this one. Sorry. That input is going to submit the values of the form. So the input type, I search for submit. Okay, so submit, and then so I have the type of submit and the value. Now the value is what will appear on the button. So if I save this, you see that the button appears, but there is nothing inside the button to show that, okay, this is the button for submitting it. So I can give it a value of, let's say, submit. So when I save it, now that particular button has a value called what? Submit. Okay, so let me click on submit and let's see what happens. You see it tries to go to login.php. It tries to send the information to this particular page, but this particular page does not exist. That's why it's giving us this particular error. So let me come back. So there's one attribute of the form I didn't talk about. That is the method. So the method attribute, what it does is tell us how the data is sent. So how do we send the data? That is what the method attribute also does. So a secure way of sending the data is to use the post. So you select post, and then I save. Okay, so there is another input type, but that input type does not really use the input tag. So let me talk about that one now. So I'll bring up the div tag, press enter. So it's called the select tag. So I'll type select, and then the same thing applies to the input tag. The name is giving it an identity when the value is sent to the form or to the page. So let's say I'm going to use it for the gender. Let me take away the ID, we don't need it now. So the select tag also contains different tags. So what I'll do is to bring the closing tag downwards so that it will format my code very well for me. So I bring it downwards. Now, so what tags does the select tag contain? It contains the option tag. So I'll give option. I can come and then select option, and then it's asking for the value. Now the value is going to be submitted to the select tag before the select tag submits it to the form. So there are going to be so many options, so the particular one that is selected will be given to the option, the forms tag, to be sent to login.php. So the content will be actually what will be on the page, but when the user selects that particular one, the value is what will be submitted to the select tag, and then in turn sent to the forms. So let's say the gender for the first one is male. So if someone selects male, the value should be male. So someone selects male, and then the value itself is given to the gender. So the gender as male will be sent to the forms. So since we are going to have different options, I'm going to duplicate the option tag. And a shortcut in Windows for duplicating the option tag is to use the Shift Alt and then the down button. So Shift Alt and down, it duplicates it. All that we have to do is to change this one to female and change the value to female. So I'll change this one to other, and then change the value to other. So when I save it, see that there's this drop down over here. When I click on it, it gives me the options of male, female, and other. So that is the select tag over here. And I forgot to give it a label, so let me give the label before the select tag. So the label, let's make it gender. So I save it, and then I get the label as gender, and then the drop down over here. So I have the male, the female, and then the other. These are what are appearing on the page, but when I select it, it is this value that will be submitted to the gender, and then the gender in turn is submitted to the forms, the location login.php. So that is that input also. Okay, so I want to talk about three other attributes of the input tag. So let me pick this input tag, the email input tag. So if I want to add another attribute before the greater than sign over here, I can put the cursor, give it a little space. Now the first attribute I'm going to talk about is the placeholder. So what the placeholder does is that, okay, let me type something. So enter your email, save it, and then it gives this particular text inside the input. Now when I click to type, see that that text disappears. So it is telling us, it is a little hint that gives what to be typed in the input. So that is what the placeholder does. It gives you some small text that would disappear the moment you start typing. So it gives you a hint of what to type within that particular input. So that is the placeholder. If I come to the password input, I can also give it a placeholder as enter your password. So that is the placeholder. Now let me give another input. So div, so let's say label, let me do this one for age. Give it an input, and then the input type, let me pick number. So let me give it a name of age. Let me clear the ID, save it, and then it gives me age and this particular input box. You see that I have no value over there, but what if I want to give it a default value to work with before, if anyone wants to change it, it changes it. So there's an attribute called value which gives it a default value. So let's say 15. So when I save it, it gives me a default value of 15, which can be changed anytime. You can decide to use these particular arrows to change it or whatever that you want, but this is the input type. Just wanted to talk about the value attribute. So the value attribute sets a default for the input if you need it. I've talked about the placeholder. Okay, so the last attribute I'm going to talk about is the required attribute. So if you give it a required attribute, save it, what it does is that if the user enters and submits without that particular one being filled, it will give an error. So it is a required field for the user to fill before the form is submitted. Without that particular input field, the form will not be submitted and it will give an error. So if I try pressing submit, it says please fill in this field because it is a required field. So that is what the required attribute also does.